Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our first COVID webinar that we've been preparing for you this afternoon. This is the COVID reopening preparation webinar that's being presented by Success Matrix. So today's webinar is the first in the Queensland tourism industry's business capability development. This is a 3-year program, COVID-19 restarting, transitioning and resilience. And this is a program that is going to be offered over 2 stages that will cover 4 key business activities that have been identified to help Queensland tourism businesses prepare for reopening. So stage 1 is going to consist of these 4 webinars that will take place once a week from now up until the 5th of August. And they'll be available to all tourism, travel and hospitality operators across the state. Then the recorded webinars will also be available on the QTIC website. Stage 2 will include up to 4 sessions of 60-minute one-on-one online coaching sessions, and they're invaluable. They're going to be available for eligible tourism and hospitality businesses that have participated in or viewed one or more of the 4 webinars. Now, for those of you who've joined us for a webinar before, I'm Sophie Formica. It's my great pleasure to be with you once again today to help facilitate this conversation. And can I tell you, there is a stellar lineup of speakers today. They have such incredible experience across the industry in so many ways. So today we're going to hear from our panelists with research and trends that affect travel, marketing and digital trends. First up is Amanda, who's the Managing Director of Success Matrix. Now, you might remember her from our first webinar. Amanda has certainly walked the talk. She has been in all of your shoes, having been a tour and accommodation owner herself across Queensland, Sydney and Melbourne. She's worked with so many tourism businesses right across the state with her consultancy firm, along with running a regional tourism organisation. She has certainly travelled Australia and the world, marketing Queensland for the last 25 years. It means that she has built an incredible consumer and trade intel that she is very happy to share with all of you through her real life coaching programs. And then next up we have Krista Horitz. So Krista is from Krista Horitz Tourism and Events. She has worked in the industry as well for over 25 years, began as a research assistant, and she was at the University of Queensland in senior positions as well as RTOs and TEQ. She established her own business to specialise in tourism and event strategy as well as business marketing and development. Liz Ward joins us from Tourism Tribe. So Liz is a digital strategist and the co-owner of the digital learning platform tourismtribe.com. Liz is well known in the tourism industry for having developed Queensland's first destination and booking websites, as well as being the creator of the Australian Tourism Data Warehouse. Now, on top of those 3 incredible women, we also are joined by 3 special industry guests today from around Queensland, and they're going to share with us their experience in the marketplace from their region of how they're coping in the reopening stages these last few weeks, and all of the ways that things seem to ebb and flow, and the changes that are happening on a daily basis, and making sure that everybody is COVID ready. And they're from across the state. We felt that that was really important, that you heard different experiences from right across. So Joel Gordon is joining us as Area General Manager from CRYSTALBROOK Collection in tropical North Queensland. Joel oversees the opening and the operations of the 3 large hotels in Cairns. They consist of 877 rooms, as well as 9 bars and restaurants and 2 day spas. And they're looking to open more. I believe that Joel is now working closely with his team to relaunch both the Bailey and Flynn within the coming months. And we're also joined by Laura Rumble. Laura is, let me say, she had a really tough time during lockdown. She was isolating with her husband Wayne and their 3 children on the gorgeous patch of the world in the Capricorn region in the southern Great Barrier Reef on their privately owned island, Pumpkin Island. And when they needed a change, they popped up to the new little gem that they have, the ELYSIAN retreat in the Whitsundays. But on a more serious note, Laura is a very savvy marketer who you'll hear today has been able to turn what has been a really tough few months around, and she is really focused very, very positively on the rebound. And then finally, we have Tony Martin joining us as CEO of the Qantas Foundation Memorial and Qantas Foundation Fundraising. He joined the museum in 2008 as General Manager, and he's worked in the Australian tourism industry for the last 16 years. He's had roles from the Sydney Harbour Bridge climb and then later here in Brisbane as the Director of Operations for the Story Bridge Climb. So as I mentioned earlier, we've got a panel today of incredible minds and incredible experience, and I'm sure you're all going to gain a lot out of hearing from them. So I'll kick off with Amanda. Success Matrix are kicking off the first of these webinars series. And Amanda, you know, given the success of our last webinar, what do you think the audience is going to get most out of being with us today?
I think today the best thing that we really are offering today is that engagement of having some nice conversation with a whole new approach of going in and being ready for rebound. So we want the audience to be able to take away some clear intel, to look at who the partners are that are really proactive and working to take us forward into this next stage, to hear from an operator perspective. So we're really thrilled to be able to have our operators here today as well. So Success Matrix for this program has put a collaborative approach together with having the team with Liz and Tourism Tribe and Krista and her team at Krista Ritz Tourism Marketing as well, so that we can have a really broad perspective of everything with marketing, whether it be digital, whether it be tourism and events, and whether it be trade. So we hope that they really get to take away some new tips, and we've created a resource tool to go with this as well. And I know you'll go through the coaching program that's available at the end, and those things will be all fitting into what this program that QTIC are delivering. So we're very excited.
Thanks, Amanda. Krista, we've received quite a few questions from the webinar participants in advance that relate to whether people are going to be able to afford to travel and what the appetite is for travellers. Are there any figures that indicate whether Australians will have the financial capacity to travel, given what we're hearing in the news?
Yeah, it's a great question, Sophie, and it's something I guess on all our minds, and something we're very, I won't say worried about, but just cautious, thinking, well, with a downturn in the economy and unfortunately people losing jobs or being made redundant or even reduced hours, how on earth are they going to be able to afford to travel? So I just wanted to share with you information that for any of you who joined the Tourism Australia webinars would have seen before. It's from Deloitte Access Economics and the Tourism Research Australia stats. So I've just got a couple of screens to quickly share with the audience today if you haven't seen them. Just from the big picture, it's great to understand in what the travel spend was in Australia last year. And by travel spend, that's from all international visitors and Australians. So looking at it roughly in Australia, we have a large spend of about 138 billion, which is a lot of money, but it's very important to understand about 22% of that spend was by international visitors and about 78% from domestic. So even before COVID, domestic market is still very important. Yes, if you're in the international market, that's why the coaching coming up after this webinar is so very important, and to keep on track and change markets. And then in the next slide, I wanted to share with you with that question, Sophie, about, well, how much will Aussies actually have to spend? And in that diagram, you'll see from Deloitte's there that on the screen there, the grey and green one. In that diagram, it shows you what Australians spend on travel, totally international and domestic last year. So a big proportion of their spend has been on outbound travel. So that's Australians visiting overseas. And obviously they can't do that at the moment, and in the short term won't be able to. So even though it has been like propensity to travel is expected to be weaker, we're thinking logically that that spend that they would have spent overseas obviously will shift towards a domestic spend. And for smaller areas and more remote areas, I think as a practical insight for this, start thinking about, I guess, how exotic you are by being remote or a far way away and being on people's bucket lists. So there's an opportunity there that people who may have been going to exotic destinations overseas start thinking about yourself and how exotic we are. We're a massive continent. So that's a great opportunity. The other thing to be very aware of, which was even a surprise to me, is how many fellow Australians actually travel within their home state or territory. So even pre-COVID times, 40% of total Australian spend on any travel, domestic and international, was within their own state or territory. So that's great news for domestic travel. And obviously, it's very important to understand, and we're experiencing this already in the short term. The visiting friends and relatives market is very important. So if you're a tour operator who's looking at, you know, how do I get these locals starting to come to me, understand that they may be visiting friends and relatives, and how you're looking at ticketing, how are you looking after them and targeting them in that local area. No brainer here, the drive market's increased, and we are likely to see that increasing trend. And be very aware, if anyone's in the self-drive market already, you already know the sale of caravans and particularly camper trailers has gone through the roof over the last decade. So that trend is still on the increase, even though people may have less disposable income. And when I say that, it's not all of Australians have that. It is a certain number, but just be aware that that will be there. So I think, to answer your question, yes, there will be a weaker spend or propensity for travel, but I think because of lockup, we're already experiencing it. If you really target those short-term VFR markets, drive market in the short term, hopefully fly drive for those more remote locations, and really hone in on targeting locals.
You know, you mentioned trends, and obviously we're hearing lots about consumer travel and consumer travel trends during this period, and you touched on a few of them in that answer. But what are the big picture trends that we should all be aware of when it comes to attracting the traveller?
Absolutely, and we've seen a lot of the trends in Australia. The consumer trends were happening already. I just want to quickly share with you what's been trending over the last month, or this month in July, and be aware that this is just what if figures, so it's not all your figures for all of booking agents in Australia. On the white column, the audience hopefully can see that there's the top 10 destinations booked through What If for family accommodation over the holidays for Queensland travel. The one on the green, however, is really interesting because that's what's been trending. So some destinations, compared to this time last year, have had a growth of over 100% interest, which blew my head away. And some of them include, you'll see there, Hervey Bay, Brisbane, but some really new ones like Ballindine, Stanthorpe, Warwick, Rocky. So some other destinations that may not have been high on people's agendas. And if we flip now to those big picture consumer trends, this will help explain why that's happening. And the trends that are happening with consumers, they're not new, Sophie, so they're really ones we've seen. They were happening anyway. COVID's just absolutely catapulted them. The fiercely local trend I want to touch on first. That's really come out of what was happening, think global, act local, that real trend of live like a local. Really understanding, are you a local business? Are you employing local people? Where are you from? People need to know this. So if you're a local business, make sure you're communicating that. Are you serving local?
Is the food on the plate from just down the road? Yeah.
And the paddock to plate theme's been happening for a long time, but this is getting personal. Is it Australian made? Say if you're on Maggie Island off Townsville, and you're made in Maggie, or you're born in Maggie, call yourself, hey, I'm a local made in Maggie, made on Maggie. So really think about that local. The next one I want to get really deep into your heads and into all our heads is, do you care? So this is, do you care for my family and friends? Are you COVID safe? Most importantly, can I trust you? Now, most consumers may not even be thinking this externally or verbalizing it, but trust me, this is really important. So just go back, Amanda, on the previous ones, and really understand, just go back one more, about that understanding about, do you care? The third one is, I want to break free, that desire for open space, breaking the four walls, and countryside and nature. So that's why we've seen some of those locations within a drive distance to obviously Brisbane, but also other areas. Obviously, this is that break free. I want to have open space. And we heard from Tourism and Events Queensland, if you are located near a national park or an attraction, even if you're half an hour away and have tours to those areas, make sure you're highlighting those. The next consumer trend is give back. We want to know when we go somewhere, we hear it all the time. How am I going to help the local town? Are you recovering from fire, from COVID? Are you social aware? And how are you helping people as a business in need during this time? And the last two trends can't get enough with social media. I'll be leaving to Liz, our expert in there, and for digital retail have just been, those two themes were so strong already with consumers, but this has just catapulted them. So Amanda, I'll quickly squeeze through that. Fiercely local, make sure you're including images. Like I said, put your made in Australia, made on Magnetic Island, wherever you're from. The next one is all about being COVID safe. Make sure if you are COVID safe and or have COVID clean practicing, don't let this communication dominate your marketing at all, but make sure it's very clear how safe you are. And that, just that example from Amanda shared back there with 1770 and the Lark, they talked about, are we open? But to make sure we can ensure a COVID safe seating arrangements, please make sure you book ahead. I loved that example. The next one going in there is about giving back. This is an example from Varia's restaurant in Stanthorpe, who employ local trainees, start with getting young people employed. So they sort of weave that messaging through. And just lastly from me, I just wanted to share that beautiful open spaces. Don't forget how important this is emotionally and psychologically to us. So making sure, even as an event marketer, we always put lots of people, or used to, in our photos. Now we show about open space. And if anyone, my theme song for this year is from Queen, I Want to Break Free. So I'll hand it back to you, Sophie.
That's perfect, Krista. Liz, she mentioned that you would pick up on talking to us about the digital side of things. I have a feeling that you're probably spending as much time on your phone as my son at the moment, because the digital trends that we're seeing obviously directly affect us in tourism. And when it comes to this can't get enough and the ability to be able to use these digital platforms, are there any tips? And should operators be leveraging digital networks, websites and social media channels? And in your experience, which ones have become most important during COVID?
Yeah, thanks, Sophie. I think I probably spent more time staring at my screen than I have on my computer screen doing Zoom calls or whatever, doing more than anything else. And that's been a huge trend. We've had this, I might get you to go back one, Amanda, but I'll just save this for the second part of what I want to share with people in terms of some ideas. But we've had this acceleration of digital use that Krista meant, largely by consumers and by businesses as well. We're not going to turn that digitisation back. A report I just received just like minutes ago from before this session from PayPal, it predicts that we have accelerated digital transformation in terms of cashless payments by 5 years because of COVID, and that they have seen downloads that were 3 times the number in April than previous to COVID, and a lot of that has been in what they call the silver tech demographic, so over 50-year-olds. So this willingness to purchase online has just gone through the roof. So that's something we need to think about. We need to think about death by Zoom, and just how that people have now learnt that they don't have to. Well, what's that going to do to business travel? It's going to be interesting, isn't it? It means that we're going to get really creative in terms of our reasons to travel and the reasons to meet with people. But this has been a big impact in terms of the way consumers think and their willingness to use virtual communications like never before, which is then also hooks Zoom, as far as a stat goes. They were launching for 5 years between 2014 and 2019, and in April the app was installed more times than that period. So it says it all. So video conferencing, big one. Social media. So as Krista said, use has been up on social media. Where most of the use has been in communication. So in terms of that virtual networking with people, messaging, using video chat, so hooks back into the Zoom fact. So that's been a big progression for people. And then what we've seen on the virtual side also has been tourism businesses and destinations experimenting with in situ virtual experiences, which has been great. And I believe that will have removed some of the concern or fear that people in the industry had about virtual experiences. So I think that's good. Some practical takeouts for operators just around some of those things. I think it's really important now. I'm still not quite at that one, but I will be in 1 minute. It's really important that we have really compelling, unrefusable, great offers that are purchasable online. So packages that we can instantly buy. So like never before, the pressure is on us as businesses to do that. If you're offering gift vouchers for your winery, don't make me ring up to get it or email you. Put the capability in place on your website to buy them. Your social media audiences, we know that a lot of tourism businesses are small. Their social media audiences can be quite small, but often they're packed with local people, those small audiences. So use them to get those local packages and offers out. Don't think because you've got a small audience it's not worth doing. And remember, whilst your state, TEQ and Tourism Australia are doing great campaigns, you can really focus on your local stories and your local expertise and communicate that through social media. Great online customer service, no doubt about it. That's something I really want to reinforce to people, that you've got to help people, nurture them along, be ready to service them on channels like online chat, for example, because that's what they're used to using now. And get your in-house guest internet sorted. No leaving it any longer. You've got to provide great internet. And I'll just want to spend 1 minute on this next slide if I can. Thanks, Amanda. I know you really wanted to put this one up. And this is more about strategy than anything else, that it's now 2020, regardless of COVID, we need to shift our thinking. We're in a more competitive environment, so now it's really important to do it. And, when we do the coaching and all the different coaches do it, they'll be thinking this way and helping tourism operators to think this way. We've got to stop thinking of our digital assets like websites or Facebook channel or email marketing as different disconnected digital assets. We've got to get them all humming together so that we start to behave like the big players do as individual operators. So we start to nurture people, bringing them through these marketing channels like storytelling on Instagram or good Facebook posts or, search engine optimization, bringing them onto our website and build trust with people over time, because they may not be ready to book now. They might be waiting to feel a little more confident, maybe in the September school holidays. So we've got to learn about sales funnels and nurturing people through that, through great website, good customer service online like live chat, great offer, unrefusable offer that's targeted to the right market. Things called lead magnets are really important in marketing now, so that great content to be able to download, to be able to engage people with an email address. Then setting up email marketing automation. There are small business practices to do this now. It's not something just for the big players. The tools now exist for small businesses, and then hopefully ultimately we can get the sale. So I just wanted to end on that in terms of let's shift our thinking. It's time that we move to the next level in our marketing, and small businesses now can do this and have access to this.
Liz, just before we move on, I'm listening to you and everything you said is so incredibly valuable. But at the same time, particularly as a consumer, we're being bombarded so much by the same sort of messaging and the same sort of imaging. How important is it for operators to make sure that what they're putting out across their digital platforms, even if they are smaller operators, really capture something about the uniqueness or the authenticity of what it is that they offer?
Absolutely. So if you go, and I'm not trying to, criticize Booking.com or Expedia here, but let's just take this as a practical example. You go and look at all of the products on Booking.com, for example, it's all got the same flavor, it's all got the same brand, it's all presented in the same way. You go look at that same business on their website, they can have a really personable approach. They can talk about what they're passionate about, what their values are, who are their ideal guests. They can portray that through images, they can use different images, so they can present themselves in a much more personable way. Same with social media. They can be real, they can be really authentic, and that's what they should be doing on social media. They should be telling the stories that they are local experts in, and they will all be local experts. They'll all have certain passions. So really use it in a personable way. And so it makes you different, and it keeps you really localized and on brand with really who you are as a business, as opposed to trying to look big and glossy like the big players.
Thanks, Liz. We're going to stay in this sort of digital headspace, Amanda. We've heard digital retail has grown during COVID. Are there things like online travel agents and trade networks that everyone should be looking at leveraging now?
Yes, absolutely, Sophie. So exactly as what Liz just said, you know, our fundamental thing as operators that we need to do is make sure that our shop front is the best that it can be, because that's our competitive edge. So to be able to have that direct business to start with, that needs to be absolutely perfect. And when we have it at that stage, that's when I totally believe in making sure that we are connecting with the online platform and our online partners. So Liz just mentioned two there of being Expedia and Booking.com. With those two, they're definitely the giants now. They've eaten everyone up. So I feel very much that we used earlier the stats from What If, because of the fact that it has been a fantastic player in the rebound. And actually Laura from Poon up there, where she's sitting in her lovely spot at the moment, will share some of the success she's had with that and why they've been a great player through this. But what they give us is the exposure and the coverage that we can never get on our own. So if we sit in our beautiful destinations with our lovely product and have our doing everything else right, we will still do well, and we will do very well closer to home. But if we want to start attracting other people from around the state who haven't necessarily been traveling around the state for a while, they've been going interstate or overseas, we've got to get them to realise just what there is. You know, Joel, I think today bringing him in is fantastic, because that's new products in Cairns. I'd not even heard of CRYSTALBROOK, the collection, you know, because I hadn't been up to Cairns in the last, 12 months. So I think it's really important, if people are wanting to get out into that extended market, that they do tap into the partnership of trade, and especially the online players. So the online travel agent first is definitely.
How though? Like, how would you do this? Can you give us some practical steps?
Sure. So the first thing is, I always recommend, if you're not connected to the trade at all, then talk to your regional tourist organisation, because they're the ones that first of all will have the intel in who's working closely for your particular region, who's already having successes, and they will also have linkages into coaches like us that will also help direct very quickly into connecting those dots. But it's a matter of having your product trade ready. So you do have to have your contracting, you do have to have commissional product. So for a lot of people, that's been a daunting process in the past, and they haven't wanted to go down that track. Some have done it internationally and done different products internationally, and so domestically they've stayed closer to home and doing the direct side of things. But certainly it is a must at the moment, and being able to be trade ready, do your commissions, having the right products that you're putting online. So it doesn't have to be every product. Sometimes tour operators are putting some tours and not all tours, and some accommodation will, put different things on there, as well. The other side of it is then working with the other partners of, the more mainstream travel agents. So there, for example, I've got a sample there of Flight Centre. So there, the importance again with being connected to these players is they will be a partner in the big picture scheme campaigns. So Tourism Queensland, Tourism Australia, when they're doing their campaigns, they're leveraging off the trade partners as well. So if you're not contracted with those trade partners and you're not able to have adverts going out like what you're seeing with Hamilton Island there, if you're not there, the trade can't promote you. You're not going to get advertised. You're not going to get amplified up into any of the campaigns that are being done by the state or by Tourism Australia. So the other partners as well is your access partners that are really important too. So looking at those airline partners, the other partners that you've got there as well. And never forgetting partners of the RTO with their packages. Quite a few of the RTOs do, sell their packages online as well. So again, that being a player as well. But for being connected to the trade, there is a process in it, and so if people aren't, the best thing is for them to do the program that QTIC are offering. All the coaches are across that type of training throughout all the suppliers. So I'd really recommend doing that.
So people who do the coaching program would then be trade ready?
Yes, they would be. So once they do that program, they will come out trade ready, and they will be able to contract. They will be given help and guidance in connecting to the right partners to actually for their product, because not every trade partner is the right fit for different products and different destinations. So certainly the one that I'd be looking at the moment is that, as what I call my star partner, is definitely Expedia, with how they're handling COVID. They've done less, commission rates. They've also been very lenient on payment terms, and they're giving back into the marketing dollars as well. Just here, I also wanted to point out some of the connections with working with that access partners there. So I am unashamedly a Virgin customer. We'll support them through and through. So I will often find myself on a Thursday looking at happy hour. Not so much lately, but I will be doing it again very soon. So that's where I always see some savvy marketers who are talking to me at that same time on a Thursday night. They know that's happy hour, and all of a sudden I'll be getting other pop-up messages coming through to me about some other great holiday deals and things like that to destinations that are tapping into the happy hour for Virgin. So just, I think, going back to some of Liz's comments about thinking of that timing. So it's thinking about that customer's needs, which is something that is the biggest thing to focus on when we're marketing, whether it be individually or with the trade, is looking at, and that's where the trade comes into it. It's looking at, where am I booking? Where am I looking, and getting that information first, and then it's the funnel down. So if they're looking at places that maybe have sales on with the airlines, then that might be where they start looking down through there, and then that will connect into, airlines will connect into different partners as well. And of course, with everything happening at the moment, Queensland Rail have had a bumper of a season, and so that's a great partner as well. So if you haven't partnered with somebody like Queensland Rail before, it's as simple as picking up the phone and actually talking to them. And again, if you haven't got contacts with them throughout the program, you will be able to get those as well. The other side, and I just put this as a process of showing, with your question as far as who to work with, and then why do it in the first place, is my thing is it's a must. And I gave this example here. We took off for, we were going to have a weekend away on the school holidays, and originally we were going to go to the Scenic Rim. It was fully booked out. Lovely, very happy for them. It was very exciting to see that.
It was wonderful to see that. I had exactly the same experience. Wonderful, yes.
Yeah, exactly. It was so exciting. As much as we missed out on that, we were very excited for Scenic Rim. But what I found really fascinating was, while we were doing the search for Scenic Rim, Gold Coast was coming up in the Scenic Rim searches on Expedia and Booking.com. And the ones that were coming up were the ones that were clever in the way that they have their website set up directly, and how they have their listings set up with the trade. So exactly what Liz was talking about in a direct sense, they were doing it with the trade as well. So they were mentioning in their listings that they doing day trips to the Scenic Rim. And so that was organically coming then through in our searches when we were looking for Scenic Rim. Now, originally we were going to do 2 to 3 nights up in the Scenic Rim. We ended up finding the Dorchester on the beach when we were doing our search in Scenic Rim, and was prompted to go, they were talking about the Scenic Rim. Started looking on their website and found out that, oh yes, look, of course, we didn't even think about the Gold Coast as a holiday. So next thing you know, we start looking at the Gold Coast. Even saw that you go to the reef from the Gold Coast. I've done that a little bit lately, so it was a little bit further afield, so we didn't do it this time. But we looked at everything else that we could do through the Dorchester's website. Now, they had on their website all of the activities. They were linked fully to real time, so they have themselves completely linked through, so it was real time that I could check and see who was open, who was COVID ready. It was all there for me to actually pick and know that. So we went from then having 3 nights to 5 nights. So that went from looking at an online travel agent to going onto the Direct Hotels website to then me ringing them up, because I did then want to understand, you know, different things that were happening around at the time. And from that point, they said, well, if you're going to stay for 5 nights, if you want to, we'll upgrade you to the penthouse if you'd like to stay for 7 nights. So we booked 7. We had such a fabulous time down there, and I was working anyway, that of course, very cleverly, in the last couple of days as we were, you know, enjoying ourselves, they said, oh, look, you know, if you want to stay an extra 2 days, we'll give you a discount on those 2 days. So 10 days, the kids played down in the Gold Coast and I worked, and all from me looking for scenic rem for 2 to 3 nights on Expedia.
That is a fabulous, fabulous story. And the upsell, you can never, ever underestimate the value of the upsell, can you, Amanda? You know, the reality at the moment, though, so many businesses are working with little or no marketing budget. And this is where I know you love this motto of partner or perish. This is obviously more important now than ever before. It
is. It absolutely is. It's something I've always, throughout all of our businesses, all my journey in tourism, that I've had that motto. It is really scary when you do it alone, and in a time like this, more so than ever. And I suppose having the old RTO hat on, the Regional Tourist Organisation hat on, I look at this time of thinking now more than ever, that relationship and that membership of a regional tourist organisation will be your most valuable partnership and the most cost-effective one that you will have. The partnership there of the resources and the help and the guidance that's got through this stage, they have shone. And the marketing and the activities that I know they've got coming for all destinations across Queensland is incredible. I just credit all the teams for the work they've had. There has not been a COVID coma moment in any single regional tourist organisation in this time. So I give it to you all in that. And then, of course, Tourism Events Queensland, Tourism Australia, they have absolutely stood up to the plate and I think become so much more reachable. So, you know, out of COVID, I think we've all learnt things, and what I feel is actually the partnerships have got closer in all ways. And I sort of feel like sometimes, you know, I call them like the motherships is Tourism Australia and Tourism Queensland. But I actually feel like it's become a very much closer connection to operators as well, in that sense. And probably as much as we've complained about Zoom and webinars, it has given some real people contact. And I really hope operators are feeling that they feel more connected to those organisations than ever. You know, having the CEOs give their weekly or fortnightly now updates, you know, in person is just lovely, and I think, you know, I hope that operators will continue to connect, you know, with those partnerships. Of course, QTIC and ATEC are the other industry organisations that are critical with that. And then on the other side of things, I've already talked about the trade, but media is you know, really important, and Laura's going to give us an example of how she works that in a very savvy way. And we mentioned the other partners there. Don't forget your auto. You know, we've talked about the fact of that drive market. So that's really critical, getting into the caravan and camping connections there as well.
We've touched on the marketing campaigns. We've talked a lot about what's out in the market. Krista and Liz, there's a lot happening from various tourism bodies. So how can businesses now best leverage those campaigns? We talked about finding your individuality, but there must be some ways that you could suggest the operators tap into what's already happening.
Liz, I might let you talk about the ATDW first and how it links. I can touch then on the Good to Go campaign.
Sure. Yeah, I suppose, Sophie, if we think about these campaigns as, you know, they've got all the beautiful creative and all the science that have gone into them from a research perspective on the top, above the line, so what the consumers are seeing and how beautifully executed that is. But they need a whole lot of machinery underneath them, and they need a whole lot of good content and data underneath them. And that's where the Australian Tourism Data Warehouse plays one of those really important roles, because what it does is it allows operators to participate, be seen within that campaign context, and without the products Tourism and Events Queensland or the RTOs or Tourism Australia don't actually have much to take to market. So the ATDW provides a really important role there, and it's great that they have been so responsive and quick to be able to align with COVID. And so what Queensland operators need to do is they need to go and they need to say, once they have gone through the practices and the compliance that they have to do, they need to tick those boxes that they are ready, COVID ready, they've got the COVID safe certificates, etc. So then Tourism and Events Queensland know that that tick of approval has happened. The other thing I would say is that it's critically important that tourism operators refresh. So on the ATDW, they have the best possible images and descriptions, etc. So they really do that, and they look at all of their digital assets in the same light and go, okay, do I need to go over to Expedia and make sure I've got great images over there? What about my Google, my business listing? So they need to do that audit across each of the places where their products can be found.
Awesome.
Krista.
And Amanda, do you want to just quickly, I'll have a touch on now, so many people are aware of the new campaign that Tourism and Events Queensland has done in partnership with the regional tourism bodies. Fantastic campaign. I know myself, I love it because you can actually adapt it locally. So here's some examples, and apologies, we couldn't fit every destination in Queensland on the site. So I know I will be getting messages maybe from Capricorn, if I haven't included Capricorn here.
Go to the next slide.
I better go to the next slide for Capricorn. No, we do have Capricorn here, so they're good to go. So go back, Amanda. But just very quickly, Amanda and the team, after attending today, you will get what we're calling the Ready for Rebound toolkit. So it has on the toolkit links to everything we're talking about today, including the Good to Go campaign from Tourism Events Queensland. And on that link, if you haven't gone to it already, it shows you how to just go through your ATDW listing and click your, if you just go back 2 screens, Amanda, I just want to show it's so important to do this, to make sure you're leveraging the campaigns that Tourism Australia, Tourism Events Queensland, your regional tourism body, and even some local councils and local tourism bodies use that ATDW database. If you go onto your line, you'll see there on the screen, it comes up in the area about accreditation. And I don't know about you, but I sometimes, don't tell Daniel from QT this, I sometimes skip that section, but it's really important. And
I think you've just told him.
I think he knows now, Chris.
I think he now knows.
Sorry, Daniel, but it's really important even for events. So even if you're an event, we work with the Outback Queensland Masters, so we aren't on until next year. However, we do have through Golf Australia, an industry safe plan. So we can tick off, you'll see there what's called COVID safe. So we tick that off. It took me literally 3 minutes to go into my ATDW listing, find this, and I'm not great at online, so Liz has really helped me there. I ticked safe, pressed approve, and now we'll start displaying on all the campaigns. So just go back, Amanda, to the Good to Go campaign, because I don't want to run into everyone's time. There's some fabulous examples. That's how you come up if you're good to go. The little stamp you can download from Tourism Events Queensland. There's some Brisbane examples of some great press ads. The regional tourism bodies are also leveraging the Good to Go campaign. You'll see across all their networks. Here's one from Outback Queensland Tourism Association, where they're running a holiday with the Win a Good to Go holiday. I was in Brisbane last weekend. It was on digital signs, TV, print, social media, wherever I looked, and I wasn't looking for it. And then also don't forget the Tourism Australia campaign on holiday here this year. Interstate, this is what a lot of people are seeing. So there's a great example from Fitzroy Island up in TNQ.
So just to comment there, Krista, with that one, talking to Tourism Australia, they're going to be relaunching that in a big way come August. So very much you've got time at the moment to get yourself organised for that. So, you know, a lot of people didn't get that done earlier because it sort of happened, bushfires happened, and then COVID happened. So you've actually got some time now to clean up behind house and be ready for the launch of that in August.
Brilliant. And just last but not least, you've got the next example, another operator from Queensland with holiday here this year. But please, I will reiterate, because I do want to hear from the operators too, Sophie, and there's some more listings, but you'll get all of that for coming today in the Ready to Rebound toolkit from Success Matrix.
Thanks, Krista. You mentioned the operators, and I will now ask our guest panelists from around Queensland to join us online. Joel Gordon, I introduced to you earlier, from CRYSTALBROOK Collection in Cairns, Loreth Rumble from the ELYSIAN Island in the Whitsundays and Pumpkin Island in the Capricorn region, and Tony Martin, who's the CEO of the QANTAS Founders Museum in Longreach. So Joel, there you are. I'll kick off with you. I bet there were some celebrations when the first flights landed in Cairns. CRYSTALBROOK has 2 stunning hotels in Cairns. It's a fabulous collection of dining options as well. We can imagine that this has obviously been a really hard time for everybody, and following you on Instagram, I can definitely see that you are good to go. Can you share with us what you have found over the last few weeks and what your reopening tactics have been?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, thank you very much for having me on this afternoon. It's a great pleasure. Look, working closely with TT&Q, Tourism Events Queensland, and also Tourism Australia, we're continually wanting to leverage from their campaigns, especially during this time. It's obviously been a huge focus for us. I think a great example of this was the recent Tourism Australia campaign, Live from Oz, where we featured some of the fantastic local content with our partner citizens of the Great Barrier Reef. Our Cairns-based hotels hosted virtual watch parties as well during this time, to encourage our communities to enjoy the amazing life below the sea from their own lounge rooms. The Good to Go assets have now been used by us across all of our social media, digital media, and continue to feature in the next few months as our hotels and venues become live again. And this includes highlighting offers on the ATDW website also. To touch a little bit more on that, I think you're spot on. We're in a really unique position here in Cairns. We've spent the best part of 2018 opening Riley, a 311-room property with 3 restaurants and bars, a day spa, and also some function facilities as well. And then 2019 saw the opening of Bailey, a 255-room hotel with 3 restaurants and bars. And we started to embark early 2020 on opening Flynn, another 311 rooms, 3 restaurants and bars, a day spa and function facilities as well. So it's been a huge sort of 18 months here in Cairns, and to then be faced with the COVID pandemic early 2020 and have to downscale these hotels just as, or even quicker than what we bought them online has been, yeah, nothing short of a little difficult. But, you know, we see the light at the end of the tunnel now. We're starting to bring on our properties again. Riley, you know, really pleased to announce that Riley reopened its doors on the 1st of July, along with 2 of our venues, Paper Crane and also Rocco, which is a great venue, one of our flagship venues, sitting 12 stories up, overlooking the Coral Sea, and got 270-degree views out over the Atherton Tablelands as well. And even as of this weekend, we're opening up one of our other venues, Boardwalk Social, down on the Esplanade. And then next week we open up CC's Steakhouse as well. So, you know, we're slowly starting to reopen some of our venues, and we'll slowly open the hotels as demand comes back into Cairns.
So what have you guys been doing post-COVID in terms of the way that you've changed operations or had to think about the way that you'd open?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, a couple of our real key pillars even before post-COVID was specifically around sustainability and also technology. And we've really lent and re-looked at these pillars even post-COVID as well. So outside of the COVID Safe Plan, which every business should have, we've partnered up with Diversity on making sure that we can build that consumer confidence. I think, you know, consumer confidence is the absolute key during this time. Outside of that, though, we really wanted to enhance the mindfulness, and we initiated a program called Mentally Safe. We implemented ensuring the focus on overall well-being, both for our collaborators and also those guests who are coming and staying in the hotels as well. We partnered up with Beyond Blue to give away a $5 donation for every booking that's coming through the hotels as well. And then we also used our in-room iPads as well to develop new mindfulness meditations to enjoy in the room. We've got yoga and Pilates that can be enjoyed in the room and also down by the poolside as well. We're holding bar classes also. So we worked pretty closely with the Indigo project on developing some of those mindfulness apps that some of our guests can actually use through the rooms. On top of that, also, we're very aware that it extends to our restaurants and bars as well. So now we're utilizing QR codes in the restaurant to give people their menus. So no longer do we rely on those paper menus anymore. We're introducing QR codes to be able to deliver those menus to people, and also using those QR codes to capture guest details when they come through the hotel as well. Further to that, some of the existing technology that we've got through the hotels has been in place for quite some time and rolled across all 3 of our properties, and also down south as we bring on properties down south as well. But further to that, we've got digital tour desks. These digital tour desks allow us to book experiences in the region. So we partner up quite closely with all of those tour operators in the region to be able to make sure that we eliminate the old school typical brochure boards and eliminate also paper ticketing. And this is done through, it's sort of a one-stop shop where people can actually go up to the digital brochure board, look at imagery, videos, and what their experience is going to actually entail for the day. And then we utilize QR codes to actually be able to then throw that onto the personalized mobile of that person who's looking at it, which then can be received through that digital QR code as well.
You know,
So,
Joel, you mentioned that a lot of these things were already in place. It was the way that you were going to be running the business pre-COVID anyway, particularly when it comes to issues like sustainability, paper use, and those sorts of things. Have you found, though, that now with reopening in this climate, that consumers are a lot more open to using those tools and exposing themselves to the information in that way than perhaps they might have been had COVID not happened?
Yeah, I think the word there is willingness, and I think millennials, given that they're grown up with a phone in their hand, basically, we're a lot more willing to, adapt to some of these new technologies that we were putting through our hotels. It did take a lot of coaching for some people who were coming through our hotels to become familiar with some of the technology that we're introducing. And for us, it really doesn't stop there. You know, I feel that there's so much more that we could be doing in this space around check-in and check-out and being able to that guest journey, so to speak. We use that a lot in our business. What does that guest journey look like? And what does a typical guest journey look like in a typical hotel? And what does that guest journey look like in a CRYSTALBROOK Collection hotel? And yeah, you're spot on. The willingness to use technology now, where people are made much more aware of being COVID safe in this environment, they're a lot more willing to utilize the technology available to them.
Thanks, Joel. I'll pass over now to Loris. Amanda tells me that, and I actually already knew that so much of the visitors to ELYSIAN in particular was international, 97% before COVID, and Pumpkin also relied heavily on the interstate market and visitors from Europe, Loris. It means that you were definitely in that partner or perish situation. And I believe that you've actually put in place a diverse marketing strategy. We would love you to share with us how you've been able to successfully turn this business around from being predominantly international visitors to now really focusing on the domestic market. Just unmute your microphone. We can't hear you. There you go. Talk now.
Hi, can you hear me? There we go. Thanks so much for having me today. So yes, for us, it was quite a challenge, obviously, moving to domestic market. Pumpkin has slightly more of a domestic market anyway, but for us in the beginning, it especially was about targeting more of Queensland specifically, so the intrastate market. We partnered with some of the local retail travel agencies, so Hello World, the Travel Associates. I spoke to them personally on the phone. So I think it's really important to have a good relationship with people. First of all, that is, they can hear you, they can speak to you, and they start trusting you. They trust that you're going to look after their clients. So we all had to change really quickly from marketing international holidays and marketing to international customers to doing that domestically. So another tool that I used quite extensively was using social media ads and making them very targeted. So that was something that I found to be very effective. So using lookalike audiences with email databases, that's really powerful. And then we also partnered with QANTAS, with ELYSIAN specifically to do some rewards, holidays, and to kind of promote that through their channel. So we've got QANTAS frequent flyer packages so people can have extra bonuses, and QANTAS has been really amazing with us while they were partnering with us. So yeah, and then Expedia is another one I wanted to talk about. Our account manager Lachlan is just amazing. So they've cut their commission by 10%, and while they've done that, they've also given us the commission we paid last year, 25% of that commission.
Can't hear you. We can't hear you. Loreth, we can't hear you. Sorry, I think you were loved to death then. It sounds like maybe your microphone got knocked out. Loreth? Laura, thank you. I'm sorry we didn't hear the end of her question. Then it sounds like maybe she was loved by one of her little ones who knocked the microphone out of the side of the computer.
Sorry.
That's okay. We just missed the end when you started to talk about Expedia and how fabulous they've been in negotiating commissions and helping you with marketing. If you just want to finish on that point.
Yeah, sure. So Expedia has been a really great partner with us. They've cut their commission by 10%. They've given us 90 days to pay our invoices, and then they've got this new revive and relief package in place. So for the next 3 months, we can use some of the credits of last year's commission that we've paid with them for bookings. We can use that in our marketing activities through their website. So they've just been really good and trying to help us get back on our feet, and obviously at the same time, obviously gaining more for themselves. So I think it's really important, like Amanda said, for us to partner with other operators, other retail agencies. I think the relationships are going to kind of pull us all through this.
Tony, speaking of those relationships, I know that you've just opened with a new attraction, and you would have just loved Loreth talking about her wonderful campaign partnership there with QANTAS. But it has been a busy couple of weeks for you in terms of travellers to Longreach and to the Outback. What are some of the challenges and some of the successes that you've faced being COVID safe?
Yeah, thanks, Sophie, and welcome everybody to QANTAS Founders Museum and the Outback, best part of Queensland. Well, we like most of us, we were forced to shut for 3 months, and then had a 2-week preparation for opening. And when you think about, we had 37 in our team, and then we got maybe a third of those back. So with the 2 weeks trying to open with 3 brand new products, which was the Air Park, Super Constellation experience, and then our Luminescent Longreach, which is the nighttime experience with a new laser show, plus opening the doors to a new world, which is COVID, and trying to first of all make sure we've got all that in place, all our COVID plans in place, all our team have been inducted properly with all the necessary certifications, and through our catering team and front of house team, and then open the doors to our wonderful guests that have travelled all the way out here to the Outback. I guess where we are in a more of a positive situation is 90% of our guests are domestic. Traditionally, they do travel by road, towing the turtle behind the car, and they are of that retiree demographic. So in our first 2 weeks of opening, we've seen that generally 90% of the people are very, very understanding and had the foresight to book. There is a small percentage, though, I think, have come from the moon that hadn't heard of this pandemic. and didn't realise that certain things were in place. And I'm sure other people today have experienced those people for the moon or Victoria. I'm sorry, I didn't know. But I think one of the things we've had to look at. Oh, another thing too, we launched a new booking system just to keep us on our toes. So one of the biggest things for us was allowing my team, every member of our team, first and foremost, to be well versed in that booking system and how to navigate it, how to operate it. So they're incredibly well versed in that, and by doing that, you're allowing my team to all carry a mobile phone, which some operators think, oh, staff should not have their mobile phones on them, but absolutely have them on them. Something which I like to call walk the line, and it's certainly what along the lines what Joel mentioned around that the guest's journey. So I call it walking the line. So whether that's the line of people queuing up to get into your venue before you open the doors at 9 a.m. Yeah, I'm out there at 8 o'clock meeting them in the car park, and some of my staff are, and helping them at that point, that first point of contact, which is the first point of contact for those who haven't had that first point of contact through your website or your booking system, because quite a lot haven't. And it's having that conversation with them at that car park or at that line with your mobile phone, with your tablet, and helping them navigate their way through the booking system and making sure they've got a spot and an experience within the time frame that they're visiting. So I found that to be incredibly useful, as well as educating our community. Hosting as many businesses in our community as we can before we open, so they understood the product. So the butcher, the baker, the local IGA, the local barber, the hairdressers, all those people experienced what our product and our new product was. So our community's well versed in our offerings. And what I found absolutely critical was working with our visitor information centre and all our other tour operators, that they understood our booking system as well, and they understood our capacities and our capabilities versus in line with our COVID plan. So they knew that the Qantas Founders Museum, which was changing from day to day as restrictions were relaxed. So on a certain day, we were allowed to seat 20 in a restaurant versus the 37 today, and the capacity for our tours as well. So I think working and communicating with other operators has been really good by identifying a great example. So I got a call from Lloydie at the Hall of Fame, and he said, got a family of angries coming across the road to visit you. They're from the Gold Coast, and they're really angry because they didn't book at us and we can't fit them in. We're at capacity. And I said, great, did you get a name? He said, yes, I've got a name. I said, what were they wearing? He explained what they were wearing. So I was immediately outside, and I saw them crossing the road, and they did look angry. And you could tell them from the Gold Coast, they had a bit of an orangeness about them. And as they came over, I said, "Oh, you must be the Brown family." And they was like, "Yes, we are. How did you know that?" "Oh, we've been expecting you. Did you know I've got reservations on this tour, and tonight we can put you on the luminescent show if that's something you're interested in." Well, it just turned them around, and it got the experience that we were hoping for our guests. Yeah, look, Sophie, I can talk underwater with mouthful of marbles. I'll keep going.
No, thank you. No, thank you, Tony. We are going to run over a little bit. So for those of you who are on the webinar with us, please feel free to stay. We will we'll start to wrap things up. But just before I let Joel in particular go, because I know that Cairns, the region has suffered greatly. And now that things are starting to open, at the same time that comes with it some challenges. We're good to go, but we're good to go in the environment that we're in now. And as Tony mentioned there, communication seems to be so important. They sound like they're doing a really great job of it in Longreach. Are you finding a similar experience in Cairns to make sure that the visitor experience is a really good one when they step outside the doors of a Crystalbrook hotel?
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a great point that you make. And Tourism Events Queensland and TT&Q have done a a really solid job in promoting this region. But it is up to us also to make sure that the destination is ready. And that means that we're talking amongst each other, hotels, operators, restaurants and bar owners, to make sure that we're all communicating the exact same message when people come into town. I had a situation even myself where I was walking around town and a couple of people sort of didn't know who I was, but suggested that there wasn't enough things open at this point in time. And that made me really think and reassess where we were at, especially as quite a large company here in Cairns, and making sure that we open the doors to ensuring that we're all right across each other's opening hours, when people are operating, when tour boats are going out to the reef, when tour buses are going up to the Daintree, etc., to make sure that that communication is really key with anyone coming into our destination, because it doesn't matter whether somebody hasn't been here for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, or hasn't been here at all. The experience that we can give them now as a good to go experience will stick with them for quite some time, and that will actually determine whether they come back in another 6 months, 12 months, or in another 20 years, you know. And obviously with a destination like this, we're continuing to want to make sure that it's not just a once-off destination where people tick it off a bucket list, so to speak. We want to make sure that people are coming back here continuously, you know, to get away from the hustle bustle of maybe a southern city, or to escape, you know, their work life as well. So, you know, that is a huge challenge for us. And I think even more so in such a flooded market at the moment, every destination is trying to do their bit to make sure that they can take their piece of the pie, so to speak. So it's really important for each individual destination, not just ours, but each individual destination, to make sure that they are actually good to go, and that real face-fronting experience when customers and consumers do get here, that it's one that they're going to remember for a very long time.
Lorith, just quickly, I will just bring you in before we let the three of you go. I would imagine too that even where you are on the reef, while there's a lot of time for relaxation, there's also tours that people can book. Is it a matter of managing expectations that maybe spontaneity is not the way to be traveling right now, and that instead you need to be thinking and planning ahead a little bit?
That's definitely true. I think our local RTO, Capricorn Enterprise, and the Southern Great Barrier Reef has done a really good job in communicating that to our potential guests as a region and as a destination. We are quite lucky on the Southern Great Barrier Reef because we are quite, there's a lot of space, it is secluded. So in a post-COVID world, we're kind of really placed in we're well placed to deal with social distancing and smaller tour numbers. Yeah, the Capricorn Enterprise and Southern Great Barrier Reef has really helped us to communicate those messages to our guests, and we've gone through a lot of training with them and talking to them about how we get that messages across. So that's absolutely critical. And the same in the Whitsundays. We've just had to adapt the way we talk to our guests and make sure that they feel safe and they know what to expect as well.
Well, thank you to the three of you for joining us today as the voice of the operators. It's been really lovely to hear your anecdotes, and I'm sure that there are many operators who are listening who would be able to very much identify with the things that you've been saying. And as we say goodbye to Joel and Lorith and Tony, I'll welcome Krista back up to just perhaps share as we wrap up this afternoon, Krista, your top tips for our audience today. Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
There you go. Perfect.
There we go. Are we good to go? All right.
Yes.
I guess the top tip, and it's what everyone has reiterated, whether they're operators, consultants, or any industry, is number one, be a local area concierge. Start thinking, and what I would even start to think is understand not only what your customer needs, but to second guess what they're going to need, because some of them won't know that they need this, particularly if they're traveling far to you, that they might get in late at night or on sunset, and maybe the cafe is shut at 6 p.m. or I can't get a coffee after 3 p.m. and I'm a coffee addict, so what will my mood be when I arrive? So number one, act like a local concierge. And the other number one tip from Liz had to duck away just now, but she really wanted to share with everyone her #1 tip for on the digital arena is the live chat. So not only are you engaging on social media, you're responding on your website and through, say, Facebook with Messenger and on your website with live chat. She said that's been the #1 driver of getting people to book. So I'll leave you with those.
Amanda, what about yours?
So with me, it's only do what makes you money. So I think it's there is so much to do right now. Everyone is so busy. It's like we said in the first webinar, get ready, it's coming, and it did, and it came fast and hard. And I think we're a few people are well and truly on track or ahead, and some are behind. And so, you know, my big thing is prioritize and just really focus on what's going to deliver you the conversion. So that partnering, we have limited marketing dollars. Make sure you're putting them where it counts. So leverage off the trade to be able to get your exposure, leverage off wherever other operators are marketing, work together more than ever and ever, help each other out. So if each other's marketing, push each other's products and things like that. So, you know, that conversion, as the team of operators have shared, that customer delivery, you know, you've got to really prioritize and focus on that more than ever so we can get them there. And at the moment, as we've seen, there's some places having their best ever season for domestic at the moment, and it's actually harder, you know, because they weren't ready. And as we've said, there is the customer service standard. So is so important to be prioritizing those, you know, needs as well. And the other, definitely, and this is why we have the coaching program that QTIC are delivering, for, you know, because we don't have enough time to share everything, but yield, you know, when we're talking about conversion, we're talking about making money for our business, really look at your diversity and your dynamic rates. So it's having that diverse marketing plan, be across all channels that you can, focus on all areas, and then be very dynamic with your rates, be ahead and looking at what that is, and keep, you know, across all of those things.
And in your experience, if you get an upgrade or you can be upsold, chances are you might just get a yes and a couple of nights extra, right? And that's great.
And let me tell you, the reason they upgraded me is they didn't want that penthouse on what if. They wanted to have all that stock. So that's your yield management example exactly there, is get rid of that penthouse off your online travel agent site so that everything you've got on there is your good selling major stock, and anything different, do the upgrades, get rid of.
Amanda, thank you. Krista, thank you. If you'd like to register for the next webinar and the online coaching in the Queensland Tourism Industry Business Capability Development Program, all you need to do is visit QTIC's Business Capability website. All of these recorded webinars that will happen over the next few weeks will also be available there on the QTIC website. So can I say thank you once again for joining us, to the 13 regional tourism organisations for their support of this program. And this initiative has been proudly funded and supported by the Queensland Government through its Tourism Industry Business Capability Development Program. I'm Sophie Formica. Thank you so much for spending the afternoon with us, and we hope to see you next Wednesday.